To understand where video game CGI began, we gotta get vintage.
No, man, I'm talking real vintage. Jumping back in time to the 50s, a time where gaming was never even heard of. Like nobody even knew what that was. Remedying this, William I'll call him William Higgins, designed an interactive oscilloscope game called Tennis for Two. That's when video games first became a thing.
Oscilloscopes? I don't know what the hell that is. But anyway, seems like we have ourselves a bit of history here. So now let's talk about pinball machines. These things were pretty cool to look at, but people couldn't really understand the controls.
I don't see how. There's a handle that you pull that launches the ball, and then you use the flippers and
Alright. I'll tell you what Space Wars was. Space War was a pretty neat concept game created by some random MIT student. However, the graphics were complete garbage, and it didn't do so well, so people lost interest. But the life of gaming started to look a bit brighter after the success of Pong, and 2 years later, a bunch of game genres emerged. More notably, Maze Wars and Speed Race. Hey James, did you know Maze Wars was the grandfather of Doom?
really? I don't think that's true.
Yeah, sure it is. Let me show you.
Um, honestly, dude, that doesn't look like Doom. That kind of looks like shit. Next up, we have the Atari 2600.
Yeah, with its amazing graphics and innovative gameplay, people couldn't handle it. Atari themselves couldn't handle it.
Yeah, they were releasing home versions of arcade games. However, things started to get out of hand, especially after the world's greatest game ever made, E.T. Remember that shit? This game was so bad that it caused the video game crash of 1983. No, seriously, E.T., fuck you.
Anyway, taking things back a year earlier, we have much better game known as Moon Patrol. Moon Patrol was the first game to introduce parallax scrolling. You already know what parallax scrolling is, right, James?
Oh yeah, when I think of parallax scrolling, I think Mario Brothers. Remember that? Forget about stomping on Goombas and shit. Look at that background. The stuff in the back moves like it's got 3D depth and it looked awesome.
Yeah, so since we're talking about Mario Brothers, let's talk about Nintendo. Jumping to 1985, Nintendo was the only company to save gaming. Hey, did you know that those clever devs marketed the NES as a toy?
Yeah, I heard they released some toy robot that no one gave a shit about until he became a playable character in Smash, but that'll be for another video. Anyway, jumping back on track here, the NES being an 8-bit console has its 8-bit graphics, 8-bit sound, and 8-bit everything.
Uh, but even though it's 8-bit, the NES introduced a plethora of good games. This made companies feel more confident in delivering higher quality games. So in 1984, game developers were stepping up their game. Get it? Game? Huh? Ah. And thanks to Sega, suddenly we got some awesome 3D. The arcade classic Hang On was the prime example of this. The graphics in this game were pretty revolutionary for its time, as it took the impression of 3D depth to a whole new level. Even though E.T. is entirely to blame for almost causing the death of video gaming, we had some dark, games that were almost as bad and were really controversial. Death Race, being released in 1976, was a game where you ran over gremlins that try to run away from your car. If you think that's bad, this game is worse. Chillers, which was released in arcades in 1986, was one of the most messed up games I have ever seen. I mean, this game is all kinds of fucked up. It's one of the most goriest games ever made for its time. But here, check this out. See for yourself.
What the fuck? I'm surprised this game is the one that spawned the ESRB rating system. The hell?
Yeah, see, I told you. Messed up, right? Anyway.
1991, which was one of the best years for gaming, by the way, we had Super Nintendo. This system was amazing. It was the most recognized definition of the 16-bit gaming era. I mean, we had games like Super Mario World, Super Metroid, Chrono Trigger, like these to name a few examples, but there was a hell of a lot more. Also in 1991, we saw the release of Catacomb 3D for DOS. This game also inspired Doom, as it was the first to use texture mapping in-game. And in 1999, we had Brave Firefighters, which was the first to use Phong shading. Also in 1999, we had the release of the Sega Dreamcast. Unlike Retardy with their last failed console, Sega did everything right with this revolutionary console. Sadly, it was ahead of its time and lived a short 2-year lifespan. However, during those short 2 years, there were a bunch of great games with fantastic graphics that hit the system like Jet Grind Radio, Sonic Adventures, and Shenmue.
Anyway, in the year 2000, the system that shot the Dreamcast in cold blood was none other than PS2. The PS2 literally outdoes every single feature the Dreamcast had to offer. You could listen to music, play online, watch movies, listen to little kids talk shit online.
And we had some amazing titles that really showed off the power of the PS2's Emotion Engine, like GTA San Andreas, Gran Turismo 3, Metal Gear Solid, and Final Fantasy X. By the way, what number is Final Fantasy on anyway? That numbering system is all fucked up. I mean, we got Final Fantasy 13 too. I thought Kingdom Hearts was bad. Kingdom Hearts is a good game, by the way.
You thought Kingdom Hearts was a bad game? I know where you live. I know where you sleep. You better keep one eye open. In the upcoming year, the Xbox was released, which displayed its amazing graphical compatibilities. The Xbox and its games set the example for realism at the time of its release, and games released after this only improved on this formula. And we leave with this. I hope you enjoy our history on how far our games have come.
So go ahead and drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.